By conviction we become a Buddhist in this way that we've just discussed, that we have faith or confidence in the three jewels. Confidence, of course, doesn't mean blind faith. We start with in a kind of way that we're inspired by something about Buddha or the teachings or the Sangha or the other practitioners, and that then creates in us a wish to have something of the qualities we see reflected in them. But that kind of faith must finally be translated into real conviction. Conviction that these qualities are indeed true. The Buddha's teachings, his diagnosis of suffering and its causes, and that freedom from suffering we become convinced that the diagnosis is accurate, and that his promise that there is liberation is achievable is true, and that the path he's prescribed to that liberation is true. So we get what we call the faith or confidence of real conviction, and that's not doesn't easily occur. We need to work through our study, through our practice, through our reflection, until we get this real, true conviction. So even conviction is a gradual process, from inspiration to longing to real, firm, solid conviction in the qualities of the three jewels and the Buddha's teachings. Now, a Buddhist by view refers... So if Buddhist by conviction is somebody taking refuge in the three jewels with these three types of faith, a Buddhist by view means that we've come to understand and accept what are called, technically, the Four Seals. In other words, all of Buddha's teachings are marked by their distinctiveness from the teachings of other philosophical or religious or whatever systems. And so they are that, firstly, all compounded phenomena are impermanent. For Buddhism, this is a fundamental reality, that whatever arises from causes and conditions, physical or mental, whatever it is transient. There's nothing that goes beyond that. So beings come, beings go, lives arise, lives pass. Beings are born in all kinds of different realms. Different things happen to them. They acquire different things. They lose different things. But everything that arises from causes and conditions, from the biggest galaxies to the tiniest atoms, is transient. And so there's no use, for instance, hoping for rebirth in a paradise or heavenly realm. Even if one was, it's still impermanent. So for Buddhism, this talk of gods and so on, as in talk of hell, such realms may well exist. They do in some way exist, but they're transient. So there's no point in aiming at for instance, life as a god. It's just another transient episode for us. So it's worthless in that sense. So that's the kind of radical disillusionment with the world that this teaching of that all compounded phenomena are impermanent should bring about, and a sense of dedication to this moment, because that's all we have, all we can be confident in. And then the second seal is that as we say, all contaminated phenomena are suffering. What does that mean, contaminated? What it means is, wherever there is self-clinging, suffering is inevitable result. So contaminated means contaminated by the delusion of grasping at a fictitious self, and contaminated by the emotional force that goes with that of self-cherishing, of obsessing over this imaginary self. Wherever that is dominant, suffering results. So no matter whether it's, as I just said, whether it's the God realm or right down to the hell realms, or all the manifold aspects of our human experience, wherever there is self-clinging and self-cherishing, there will be suffering. So if the teaching on impermanence is in a way a kind of process of radical disillusionment, this is even more thoroughgoing. Because we've been hoping and scheming throughout our life that we are going to arrive at the perfect situation. We're going to have the perfect object, the perfect answer, the perfect relationship, the perfect status. And we never are. Because all these are projects of self-clinging and self-cherishing. Which brings us to the third seal, which is that all phenomena are devoid of self, or empty of self. Because one might ask, well, why doesn't the self's ambitions get fulfilled? Why is its project always doomed to be disappointed? Precisely because of this, that actually it's a fiction. The idea of self, the way we've set ourselves off as a separate, independent, permanent, autonomous being, separate from the rest of reality, this is the root of our problems, because it's a fiction, and to do that is to be in contention with, to fight against the nature of reality. Because the nature of all phenomena is that they don't stand alone, is that they don't have that independent, autonomous, singular, permanent existence. Whether it's mind or body, whatever it is, whether it's small or big, whether it's here or there, whether it's self or other, I or you, all these phenomena are devoid of any solidity, devoid of any real essence, any real inherent existence, because they're all contingent, they're all dependent. And in being contingent or dependent upon assembly of parts, upon causing conditions for their arising, and upon being labeled by mind finally. In these three ways, all phenomena are empty of any solidity, of any self, as we might call it. And as long as I fight against that, as long as I try to act as if that is not true, I imprison myself in suffering. Is there an alternative? Sure. And that brings us to the fourth seal, that, as expressed, Nirvana alone is peace. Nirvana means, the etymology of the word Nirvana in Sanskrit refers to blowing out, like the blowing out of a flame, extinguishing a flame. What is blown out? What is blown out are the fires of desire, hatred, and ignorance, all of which arise from our clinging to the fiction of self. Where there is self, there is other. Where there is this division between self and other, I need to appropriate from the other to make myself feel real, to make myself feel solid. And I need also to contend with and destroy some of the other, because it threatens my sense of security. I'm at war with the world, and the emotions I feel in this war are desire, hatred, and ignorance. But they're not natural. They're not inevitable. I don't need to feel them, because they arise from this fiction. So nirvana is possible. The blowing out of the fires of desire, hatred, and greed, and with that, the extinction of the suffering that they produce for me, is possible. And in fact, it's not just possible in a way, it is the natural state. Nirvana is the natural state. Because I experience nirvana when I let go of the fiction and simply awaken to reality. Or even better, just accept reality totally. So, rather than nirvana being some kind of heavenly state, above and beyond, somewhere else, it is actually, and this is the most amazing thing of all, the natural state of all beings. And I experience it when I give up the fiction of selfhood, and those emotions that pour out of that fiction, which, as I said, desire, hatred, and ignorance. So these are the four seals, and every teaching that is consistent with those is a Buddhist teaching, actually. That is how we know what is a Buddhist teaching or not. But what is in disagreement with them, what is contrary to them, is by that nature not the Buddhist teaching. So to fully understand the Four Seals, not just understand them intellectually, although that takes some time, but also to live in them, so to speak, that's the work of the path. That will take, a life of practice.